The quiet of deep space broke as a signal bounced across the communication arrays of the United Earth Fleet headquarters. Lieutenant Dale Morgan sat up straight at his monitoring station, eyes wide as the message repeated. "Sir, we're picking up a non-human distress call," Dale called to his superior officer. "It's coming through on the emergency channel we share with the Galactic Council." Admiral Jack Reed strode across the command center, his weathered face serious under the blue glow of holographic displays. At 53 years old, Reed had seen humanity's first steps into the wider galaxy, but never before had an alien species directly requested Earth's help. "Put it through," Reed ordered. The message flickered to life. A slender, blue-skinned being with large eyes trembled as it spoke. The translation software converted the musical language into English. "To any receiving species, the Nexus Dominion attacks our worlds without mercy. The Viridian Alliance faces extinction. Our defenses fail. Our cities burn. The Council ignores our pleas. Help us." The message ended with coordinates before cutting to static. Reed studied the star map as it highlighted the location. The Viridian systems, 3 weeks travel at full burn. Colonel Lisa Ward, Reed's tactical officer, frowned. "Sir, the Galactic Council has always kept us at arm's length. They call us Deathworlders behind our backs. Why would we risk our ships and crews for aliens who fear us?" Reed understood the hesitation. Humanity had evolved on Earth, a planet with higher gravity, more extreme weather, and more dangerous predators than most life-bearing worlds. Humans could endure conditions that would kill most sentient species in the galaxy. This made other species both fascinated by and afraid of humans. "The Council fears what we might do, Colonel," Reed replied. "This is our chance to show them what we will do. Protect those who cannot protect themselves." Within hours, Reed stood before the United Earth Defense Council in Washington. The 5 leaders who controlled humanity's military forces listened as he played the distress message. "The Viridians are peaceful researchers and traders," explained Reed. "If the Nexus Dominion destroys them, we lose potential allies and technology that could benefit Earth. More importantly, we lose our humanity if we ignore a cry for help." Council President Maria Torres leaned forward. "The Council has rejected our military assistance 3 times in past conflicts. Why would this be different?" "Because they're desperate," Reed answered simply, "and desperate times change minds." After 2 hours of debate, the vote passed. Reed would lead a response fleet to investigate, and, if necessary, defend the Viridian Alliance from aggression. 3 days later, Reed stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, Earth's newest battleship. Through the viewport, he watched as 5 cruisers, 12 destroyers, and their support vessels assembled in Earth orbit, the most powerful human combat fleet ever deployed to aid another species. "Admiral," his communication officer called out. "Final clearance received. All ships report ready for jump." Reed took a deep breath. Humanity had fought its own wars for centuries before reaching the stars. Now they would fight for someone else. "Send a message to all captains," Reed ordered. "We are not going as conquerors. We are not going to show the galaxy our strength. We go to defend those who cannot defend themselves. We go to answer a call that no one else would. That is the true strength of humanity." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew, men and women ready to travel across the stars to protect beings they had never met. "Engage jump drives. Take us to Viridian space." As one, the human fleet vanished into the darkness, leaving Earth behind and heading toward their first interstellar rescue mission, and perhaps their first interstellar war. The human fleet dropped out of jump space with military precision, weapons ready. Admiral Reed stood on the Dauntless's bridge as the devastated Viridian outpost came into view. What had once been an orbital station was now a twisted wreck of metal, still glowing hot in places. "Life signs?" Reed asked, his voice tight. Lieutenant Morgan worked his scanner controls with practiced ease. "Faint readings from the surface, sir." Several hundred survivors gathered in underground shelters. The Nexus left heavy radiation in their attack pattern. Reed nodded grimly. Radiation that would kill most species. Prepare landing teams with full hazard gear. Ambassador Wells, you're with me. Tara Wells, Earth's first diplomatic officer assigned to an active combat fleet, adjusted her suit helmet. At 35, she had negotiated with 17 alien cultures, but never in a war zone. The radiation levels are within human tolerance limits, the science officer reported. Uncomfortable, but not deadly for our teams. 6 shuttles launched from the Dauntless, escorted by fighter craft scanning for threats. They landed near the largest concentration of survivors in what had once been a research center. Now it was a crater with makeshift shelters beneath the rubble. Reed led the way, the first human to set foot on Viridian soil. The air was breathable but filled with dust and the smell of burnt materials. His team spread out, sensors sweeping for dangers. From the rubble emerged thin, blue-skinned figures. They moved with caution, their large eyes blinking in the harsh light. One stepped forward, taller than the others, wearing what appeared to be a leadership emblem. I am Nyx, the translator converted the musical language. Chief researcher of Outpost 12. You are humans. Ambassador Wells stepped forward. Yes, I am Ambassador Tara Wells of Earth. This is Admiral Jack Reed. We received your distress call. Nyx's eyes widened. You came. The Council said no one would come. More Viridians emerged from hiding. They stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and hope. Several were clearly injured, their blue skin marked with burns and cuts. How can you stand here? One asked. The Nexus weapons leave radiation that kills. Reed smiled slightly. Humans evolved on a world with natural radiation. We can tolerate levels that harm other species. A medical officer from the human team approached an injured Viridian child. The child's parent pulled back in fear. It's okay, Wells said gently. Our doctors can help. Slowly, trust began to build. In the main shelter, Nyx showed them recordings of the Nexus attack. Massive warships had appeared without warning, destroying Viridian defenses in minutes. They hit 17 of our worlds in coordinated strikes, Nyx explained. The Nexus Dominion takes what they want and destroys the rest. They see peaceful species as weak, resources to be used. How many survivors? Reed asked. Perhaps half our population. The Nexus didn't expect anyone to live through their radiation bombing. Later, as human medics treated the injured Viridians, Wells watched in surprise as a doctor applied Viridian healing gel to a cut on a Marine's arm. The wound closed almost instantly. Your medical technology is impressive, she said to Nyx. And your bodies are remarkable, Nyx replied. What the Nexus uses to kill, you walk through with minor discomfort. They have never faced a species like yours. A sudden alarm blared from Reed's communication device. Admiral, came an urgent voice. 3 Nexus scout ships just appeared at the edge of the system. They're scanning us. Reed watched the tactical display as the alien vessels held position briefly, then suddenly jumped away. They've seen us, he said quietly. Now they'll report back what they found. Nyx's translator couldn't capture the emotion in his voice, but Wells heard it clearly, a mixture of fear and hope. What happens now? Nyx asked. Reed looked at the devastation around them, then at the injured Viridians being treated by his medical teams. Now, Reed said with quiet determination, the Nexus Dominion learns what happens when you attack those under human protection. The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Representative Mark Daniels of Earth walked to the speaking platform. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds watched the human with mixed emotions. Many had never seen a Deathworlder in person before. Honored representatives, Daniels began, his voice echoing through the vast hall. 3 days ago, the human fleet responded to a distress call from the Viridian Alliance. What we found was genocide. Daniels activated the holographic display. Images of destroyed Viridian cities and injured survivors filled the air above the council floor. Several delegates turned away, unable to watch. The Nexus Dominion attacked without warning or provocation, Daniels continued. They used radiation weapons specifically designed to cause suffering before death. This is not war. This is extermination. From the upper tier, a tall, insect-like being rose. Representative Krill of the Mantodian Collective clicked its mandibles in agitation. While regrettable, this conflict does not concern Earth, Krill stated. Humans were invited to join this council as observers, not as galactic police. Your warships violate 3 treaties by entering Viridian space. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Daniels waited for quiet. When we joined this community of worlds, he said calmly, we were told that the council stood for peace and protection of all sentient life. Yet when the Viridians begged for help, this council did nothing. The council leader, an ancient being named Moro, whose species have been among the first to travel the stars, leaned forward. Human, you do not understand. The Nexus Dominion is powerful. Intervention could spark a war that would engulf dozens of systems, and allowing them to destroy peaceful worlds one by one is better. Daniels asked. The Viridians had no weapons. They were researchers, artists, healers. Now half their population is dead. A small purple-skinned delegate stood. We fear what comes next. Humans evolved on a death world. Your biology is designed for violence in ways ours is not. If we authorize human military action, what happens when the fighting is done? Will you leave or stay as conquerors? Daniels looked around the chamber, understanding their fear. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, and their history of internal warfare was well known. You fear us because we are different, he acknowledged. Because we can survive conditions that would kill most of you. But strength can protect as well as harm. He displayed new images, human medics treating Viridian children, engineers rebuilding shelters, ships distributing supplies. Admiral Reed has ordered our fleet to defend remaining Viridian worlds until this council acts. We do not seek permission to fight. We seek your support for those who cannot fight for themselves. The chamber erupted in debate. For hours, species argued while Daniels waited patiently. Humanity's reputation was at stake, but more importantly, so were Viridian lives. Finally, the council leader called for silence. We have received disturbing reports, Moro announced. Nexus forces are moving toward the main Viridian homeworld. Their fleet size suggests they intend complete destruction. The leader paused, ancient eyes studying Daniels. This council hereby grants limited authorization for human defensive operations to protect Viridian civilians. No offensive actions against Nexus homeworlds are permitted. It wasn't everything Daniels had asked for, but it was enough. As he left the chamber, his communication device signaled. It was Admiral Reed. How did it go? Reed asked. We have authorization to defend, not attack, Daniels replied. But I also learned something important. The Nexus has never faced resistance from a Deathworld species before. Reed was silent for a moment. Then they're about to learn a painful lesson about picking fights with the wrong planet. The bridge of the Dauntless hummed with tension as Admiral Reed studied the tactical display. 5 Nexus warships had appeared near the Viridian colony of Lumara, their weapons already powering up for bombardment. Status of Lumara's defenses? Reed asked. Lieutenant Morgan shook his head. Minimal, sir. 1 orbital platform with light weapons. Ground shields at 30% capacity. Population of 8,000 Viridians. Reed straightened his uniform. Inform Commander West to prepare ground forces. The Nexus will land troops once their initial bombardment weakens the shields. On the lower deck, Commander Anna West briefed her Marines. A veteran of Earth's conflicts, West had fought in the Mars Uprising and the Antarctic Resource Wars. At 40, she had seen more combat than most alien military leaders in their entire lives. Nexus forces have never fought humans, she told her troops. They expect their enemies to die easily. They expect radiation and toxins to clear the way. They're wrong. Sergeant Tom Miller checked his gear one last time. His squad would be among the first to land. Rules of engagement, Commander. Protect the civilians at all costs, West replied. But make damn sure the Nexus learns what happens when you pick a fight with Deathworlders. Above Lumara, the human fleet engage. The Dauntless and 3 cruisers move to intercept the Nexus ships, weapons blazing. The Nexus responded with confidence, clearly expecting an easy victory like they had experienced against other species. Their confidence quickly turned to confusion. Human ships took damage, but kept fighting where Viridian vessels would have fallen. Human shields, while not the most advanced in the galaxy, were designed to withstand the harsh conditions of space near Earth, conditions that would kill most aliens. On the surface, the first Nexus landing parties broke through the weakened shields. Tall, gray-skinned warriors in heavy armor moved through the streets, using weapons that spread toxic gas. They entered buildings expecting to find only dead Viridians. Instead, they found Sergeant Miller and his Marines. Weapons free, Miller ordered as the first Nexus soldiers rounded the corner. Human weapons fired, the sound echoing through the colony streets. The Nexus troops faltered, surprised by the resistance. Their intelligence had said the planet was defended only by Viridians, a species that should be dying from the toxins already released. "They're retreating to that building," Private Jones called out, pointing to a large structure. "That's a school," their Viridian guide said. "There are children hiding in the lower levels." Miller didn't hesitate. "First and second squads with me. Jones, cover the back exit." They moved through the toxic haze, their filters handling what would be lethal to most aliens. The Nexus soldiers had cornered several Viridian teachers and a group of children in the school's basement. The firefight was brief but intense. When it ended, Miller knelt beside a young Viridian child trembling in fear. "It's okay," he said gently. "We're here to help." Above the planet, the space battle reached its conclusion. 2 Nexus ships had been destroyed, 1 crippled. The remaining 2 retreated, but not before launching pods toward the surface. "They're taking prisoners," Lieutenant Morgan reported as the pods lifted off with captured humans. 3 Marines and 2 tech specialists. Reed's face hardened. "Track those pods. I want to know where they're taking our people." By nightfall, the colony was secure. Commander West walked through the medical center where human doctors worked alongside Viridian healers. The humans had suffered wounds that would have killed most species, yet they were already planning to return to duty. "First combat between humans and the Nexus," West said to Reed as he joined her. "What do you think they learned today?" Reed watched as news of the human victory spread across Viridian communication channels, bringing hope to a species that had known only defeat. "They learned that they've been hunting prey animals," Reed replied quietly. "Now they've met the predator." In the sterile laboratory of the Nexus research vessel Dominance, Chief Scientist Krell stared at the captured humans in horror. 3 Marines and 2 technicians lay strapped to examination tables, sedated but alive. Krell's assistants moved around them, taking samples and readings. "Impossible," Krell muttered, reviewing the data. "These creatures survive toxin levels that would kill any species we've encountered. Their cellular structure repairs itself at remarkable speeds." An assistant approached with a tissue sample. "The radiation damage that would destroy Viridian DNA merely triggers repair mechanisms in human cells. They evolved on a world that should be uninhabitable by intelligent life." Krell studied the unconscious Marine closest to him. "No wonder they call themselves Deathworlders. Update High Command immediately. This changes our strategy." Aboard the Dauntless, Admiral Reed called an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense as officers gathered around the tactical display. "We've tracked our captured personnel to this Nexus research station," Reed explained, highlighting a location on the map. "Intelligence suggests they're being studied rather than interrogated." Lieutenant James Gordon, leader of the Special Operations Team, leaned forward. "My team can infiltrate the station. We've studied their security systems from the data gathered at Lumara." "It's risky," Commander West cautioned. "The station is deep in Nexus territory." Reed nodded, which is why we need more than just a rescue mission. This operation must gather intelligence on Nexus fleet movements and weaknesses. The meeting was interrupted when a Viridian medical officer entered. Admiral, we've completed adapting our healing technology to human biology. This may help your rescue team. Reed examined the small devices the Viridian offered, cellular regeneration accelerators. We've been trying to develop this technology for decades. Your bodies already heal remarkably fast, the Viridian explained. Our technology simply enhances what you naturally do. It will help your soldiers survive wounds that would normally be fatal. 3 days later, Lieutenant Gordon led his team onto the small stealth ship Eclipse. Each soldier carried the new Viridian healing devices integrated into their combat armor. Remember, Gordon told his team as they prepared to depart, this isn't just about our people. We need to access their central database. The future of this war depends on what we bring back. The Eclipse slipped away from the Dauntless, its advanced stealth systems making it nearly invisible to Nexus sensors. The journey took 18 hours, every minute increasing the danger of detection. When they reached the research station, Gordon's team used captured Nexus access codes to dock undetected. They moved silently through the corridors, avoiding patrols. Life signs ahead, whispered Corporal Fox, checking her scanner. 5 humans, heavily sedated. They found their captured comrades in the main laboratory. 2 Nexus scientists worked nearby, unaware of the rescue team's presence until Gordon's stun weapon dropped them silently to the floor. Get our people ready for transport, Gordon ordered. Rivera, with me. We need that data. Gordon and Specialist Rivera made their way to the central computer core. Rivera connected their hacking device, downloading fleet movements, ship specifications, and research data. Sir, Rivera said quietly, they're terrified of us. Look at these reports about human biology. They call us the unkillable threat. The alarm sounded before Gordon could respond. Time's up. Get what you can and move out. The escape was not clean. Nexus security forces converged on the laboratory, forcing the rescue team to fight their way back to their ship. Gordon took a wound that would have killed most humans, but the Viridian device kept him alive long enough to reach the Eclipse. As they broke away from the station, Nexus ships in pursuit, Gordon reviewed what they had stolen. We've got it all, he said through gritted teeth as a medic treated his injury. Fleet movements, weaknesses in their shield systems, and their planned attack routes for the next Viridian targets. Back on the Dauntless, Admiral Reed studied the intelligence with growing confidence. The Nexus had never prepared for an enemy like humanity. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics, all were designed to fight conventional species, not Deathworlders. Send word to Earth, Reed ordered. Tell them we need everything they can spare. The Nexus made a fatal mistake when they attacked a species under human protection. Word spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. Humans, the feared Deathworlders, had successfully defended Viridian colonies and even rescued their captured soldiers from a secure Nexus research station. Species that had been watching in fearful silence began to hope. The first message came from the Tellurians, a bird-like species whose outer colonies had already fallen to Nexus attacks. Their ambassador arrived on the Dauntless with little ceremony but great urgency. We have weapons, the Tellurian explained to Admiral Reed. What we lack are soldiers who can survive Nexus toxins and radiation. We offer an alliance. More followed. The Morden Collective, the Pax Federation, the Quantum Harmony, all species who had suffered Nexus aggression or lived in fear of it. Within 2 weeks, Admiral Reed found himself at the center of a growing coalition. We never planned to lead a multi-species war effort, Reed confided to Commander West as they reviewed the latest requests for human protection. Earth Command is sending 3 more battle groups, but it won't be enough to cover all these systems. Then we adapt, West replied. We use human soldiers as the primary combat units with alien support and technology. The Tellurians have excellent ships but can't survive boarding actions. The packs have advanced weapons, but die in Nexus atmospheric attacks. On the newly established base on Viridian Prime, Sergeant Miller trained the first mixed-species combat team. Viridian medics, Tellurian pilots, and human marines work to understand each other's capabilities and limitations. The Nexus expects us to fight like them, Miller explained to his unusual squad. But we have something they don't have: diversity of thought and biology. A Tellurian cadet raised a wing. But humans are doing all the dangerous work. Is this fair? Miller smiled. Fair? No. Effective? Yes. My species evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Now we use that strength to protect yours. That's the point of an alliance. Aboard the Nexus command ship Inevitable Victory, High Commander Vex faced a crisis. Reports from a dozen fronts showed losses where there should have been easy conquests. How can this be happening? Vex demanded of his war council. We've conquered 17 species in the last cycle. Now we lose ships and troops daily. It's the humans, his intelligence officer replied. Their presence has changed everything. Species that once surrendered now fight desperately, knowing human reinforcements might arrive. Vex studied the battle reports with growing concern. Even worse, our own forces lose confidence. 3 garrison commanders have retreated without orders rather than face human troops. Back on Earth, the Defense Council met to consider the expanding conflict. The original rescue mission had grown into the largest military commitment in human history. Admiral Reed requests permission to strike Nexus supply lines. President Torres announced, "This would be our first offensive action, rather than defensive." The Council debated briefly. Images from liberated Viridian colonies showed human soldiers working alongside alien civilians, rebuilding what the Nexus had destroyed. Public support for the war effort had never been higher. "The vote is unanimous," Torres declared. "Operation Breaking Chain is approved." On Viridian Prime, scientists and engineers from 6 species work together in a massive development center. Viridian healing technology, human armor designs, Tellurian sensor systems, technologies that had evolved separately were now combined in ways never before attempted. This shield generator uses human radiation resistance principles with Viridian energy efficiency, explained the lead engineer to Ambassador Wells. It can protect an entire city from Nexus bombardment. Wells watched as the first prototypes rolled off the production line. 3 months ago, most of these species were afraid to speak to humans. Now we build the future together. Admiral Reed received the new orders with grim satisfaction. The time for purely defensive operations was over. Now the Alliance would take the fight to the Nexus Dominion. "Send word to all Allied forces," Reed ordered. The Nexus built their empire through fear. That ends now. The combined Alliance fleet emerged from jump space above the Nexus homeworld of Domakar. 127 ships from 7 different species moved into formation, the human vessels taking the lid positions. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Admiral Reed watched as the massive Nexus defense fleet mobilized to meet them. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Lieutenant Morgan announced. "The Tellurian battle group has taken up position on our right flank. Viridian medical ships are in the protected center formation." Reed nodded, studying the enemy fleet. The intelligence from Lieutenant Gordon's mission was correct. Their primary capital ships have weakened shield emitters at the engine junction points. "Sir," Commander West's voice came through the comm system from her assault ship. "Ground forces are prepared for deployment once the orbital defenses are neutralized." Reed took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine the future of dozens of species across the galaxy. The Nexus Dominion had spread terror and destruction for too long, believing no one could stand against them. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Aurora," Reed ordered. "Target enemy shield generators with precision strikes. Remember, we want their leadership intact for surrender, not martyrdom." The human ships surged forward, taking the brunt of the Nexus defenses. Their hulls, designed to withstand the harsh radiation of Earth's solar system, absorbed punishment that would have destroyed vessels from more peaceful worlds. Behind them, Tellurian ships used their superior speed to target the weak points identified in the stolen data. On the Nexus command ship, High Commander Vex watched in growing horror as his defense grid failed section by section. "Impossible," he hissed. "No species has ever penetrated our orbital defenses. How are they surviving our radiation weapons?" "The humans lead every attack group," his second-in-command reported. "They take damage that would destroy our ships, yet they keep fighting. The other species follow in their wake." Vex stared at the tactical display as 3 more of his ships went dark. "Send word to the surface. Prepare for ground invasion." Below, Commander West led the first wave of dropships through the weakening defenses. Her forces consisted primarily of human marines, but each squad included specialists from allied species. Viridian medics with advanced healing technology, Tellurian communications experts, Morden heavy weapons operators, all united against the Nexus threat. "Remember your training," West told her troops as they prepared to land. "Our primary objective is to secure the slave compounds and free the captive populations. Secondary objective is the government district." The dropships hit the surface under heavy fire. Sergeant Miller led his squad through the toxic clouds the Nexus had deployed as a last defense. The harsh atmosphere burned in their lungs despite their filters, but they kept moving. This was nothing compared to the storms of Earth. "Slave compound ahead," Miller called out as they reached a massive structure surrounded by guard towers. Heavy resistance expected. The battle for the compound was fierce but brief. The Nexus guards, accustomed to fighting weaker species, found themselves outmatched by humans who could endure their weapons and tactics. Within an hour, Miller's squad had secured the main gate. Inside, they found thousands of beings from dozens of species, kept in horrible conditions. Many were too weak to stand. Viridian medics moved among them, providing immediate care to the most critical cases. "Tell everyone they're free," Miller ordered his translator. "The Nexus can't hurt them anymore." In orbit, the space battle reached its climax. The Nexus flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of its defense fleet, powered down its weapons. "We're receiving a transmission from the Nexus command," Lieutenant Morgan reported. "They're requesting terms of surrender." Reed's face showed no emotion as he replied, "Unconditional surrender only. Their leadership will face justice for their crimes against peaceful species." Within hours, the Nexus High Command was in custody. Ground forces had secured the planet's major cities with minimal civilian casualties. Commander West stood in the former Nexus government hall as freed slaves from a dozen worlds gathered outside. "What happens now?" a Viridian official asked Reed as they watched the crowds celebrate. Reed looked out at the gathering of species that had once feared humans almost as much as they feared the Nexus. Now they cheered the Deathworlders who had saved them. "Now we help them rebuild," Reed said quietly. "Earth joined the galactic community hoping to be accepted despite our differences. Instead, we found that those differences made us the protectors the galaxy needed." As the Alliance ships prepared to return to their homeworlds, the Galactic Council sent a formal message. Humanity would lead a new defensive pact, using their unique abilities to ensure peace for all sentient beings. The Deathworlders had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The great hall of the Lumerian Elder Council shimmered with soft blue light. 12 council members sat around a circular table, their thin bodies and large eyes showing worry. In the center of the table, a hologram displayed their outer colony world, Neris 7. Red warning lights flashed across the image. "The attacks have gotten worse," said Vex, the colony representative. His voice shook as he spoke. "The Krata destroyed our outer farms yesterday. They will reach the main settlement in 3 days." Elder Trill, the oldest member of the council, raised a slender hand. "How many of our people are still on Neris 7? "Almost 40,000, Vex replied. "Most are families. Our ships can only carry 5,000 at a time." The council members looked at each other with fear. The Lumerians were peaceful. For 200 years, they had explored space, built colonies, and studied science. but they had never faced an enemy like the Krata. "Our defense fleet is spread too thin," said Pon, the military advisor. "We cannot reach Neris 7 in time. The nearest ships are 10 days away." Elder Trill looked down at the table. "Then we must accept that Neris 7 is lost." "No." Vex slammed his hand on the table. "There are children there, families. We cannot abandon them." Counselor Ray, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "There may be another option." The room went silent. Ray was known for unusual ideas. Some called her too progressive, even dangerous. "We could ask the humans for help," she said. A wave of shocked whispers filled the room. "The Deathworlders." Elder Trill's voice was filled with disbelief. "You cannot be serious." "I am very serious," said Ray. She stood up and walked to the hologram. With a wave of her hand, she changed the image to show a blue-green planet. Earth, a world with crushing gravity, extreme weather, deadly radiation, and thousands of predator species. The humans evolved there. "We know the stories," said Elder Trill. "They are violent and unpredictable." "Yes," Ray nodded. "But they also have the strongest fleet in this part of the galaxy. And they are only 3 days from Neris 7. Have we ever even talked to them before?" asked another council member. "Not officially," said Ray. "But our deep space monitors have picked up their communications. They speak of honor, of protecting the weak. Their stories and histories show they value heroism. Or they might see us as easy targets," warned Elder Trill. "If we invite them into our space, they might never leave." Vex looked at the faces around him. "I have a family on Neris 7. My children. If there is any chance to save them, we must take it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Counselor Ray touched the control panel in front of her. "I have prepared a message," she said. "A simple distress call, translated into their main language. If I send it now, they might still reach Neris 7 in time." Elder Trill sighed deeply. "The humans are an unknown danger, but the Krata are a certain death. Send the message." Ray nodded and pressed a final button. The message shot out across space, aimed at the nearest human outpost. "Now we wait," she said. Far away on Neris 7, smoke rose from burning buildings. Lumerian families huddled in underground shelters. They did not know that help might be coming. They did not know that their council had just contacted the most feared species in their part of space. And in the darkness between stars, the message traveled. Simple words. SOS. Colony under attack. Civilians in danger. Please help. The message reached its destination. And soon, the humans would answer. Admiral James Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, flagship of Earth's 7th Fleet. The massive view screen showed stars stretching across the darkness of space. His gray eyes narrowed as the communications officer called his name. "Admiral, we've received an unusual signal," said Lieutenant Wilson. "It's not from any human colony." Morgan walked to the communications station. "Show me." On the screen appeared a simple message. The translation software had converted it to English. SOS. Colony under attack. Civilians in danger. Please help. "Where did it come from?" Morgan asked. "Sector 742, sir. That's Lumerian space." Morgan rubbed his chin. The Lumerians. Earth had observed them from a distance, but never made official contact. They were known to be peaceful, advanced in science, but weak in military power. "Get me Intelligence Officer Reed," Morgan ordered. 10 minutes later, Tom Reed entered the bridge. He was a tall man with dark hair and serious eyes. "What do you know about the Lumerians, Reed?" Morgan asked. Reed pulled up images on a nearby screen. "Peaceful species, sir. Thin bodies, large eyes, adapted to low-gravity worlds. They're scientists and explorers, not fighters." "And who would attack them?" Reed switched the image to show insect-like creatures with hard shells and multiple limbs, most likely the Krata. They've been expanding into that sector. They're a hive species with a shared mind. very aggressive. Captain Alex Rivera joined them, looking at the message. "It's an opportunity, Admiral. First official contact with an advanced civilization. It's also a military decision," Morgan said. "If we help them, we're choosing a side in someone else's war." "They asked for help, sir," Rivera said simply. "That's what we do." Morgan nodded slowly. "Get me United Earth Command." An hour later, the decision was made. Humanity would respond to the call. Morgan addressed the officers gathered in the command center. "The Lumerians have sent a distress call. Their colony is under attack by the Krata. We are the closest fleet with enough firepower to make a difference." He pointed to the star map. "We'll take 15 warships. The Defender will lead. Our mission is to evacuate civilians and defend them from attack." "Sir," Captain Rivera said, "the Lumerians have never seen humans before. They might fear us as much as the Krata." Morgan smiled slightly. "Then we'll just have to show them we're the good kind of scary." Preparations moved quickly. Weapons were checked. Marine units boarded transport ships. Medical teams prepared for alien biology. Earth had been waiting for this moment. First contact through action, not just words. 6 hours after receiving the message, the human fleet was ready. 15 massive warships, each carrying enough firepower to level a city. The humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them daily. They had survived predators, disasters, and their own wars. Now they were taking that strength to help another species. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Morgan gave the order. "All ships, prepare for FTL jump. Our destination is the Lumerian colony Neris 7. The massive engines hummed to life. Space bent around the ships as they accelerated beyond light speed. In the quiet of his quarters later, Morgan looked at the Lumerian distress call again. They had sent out a desperate plea, hoping someone would hear. They had no idea what they had just invited into their space, a fleet of ships built by apex predators from a death world. They asked for help, he said to himself. They're about to get it. The fleet raced through the darkness toward the distant colony, carrying humanity's answer to the call. The Lumerian Science Center buzzed with activity. Chief Scientist Lori bent over her console, her large eyes widening as the readings changed. Director Mev, you need to see this, she called out, her voice trembling. The elderly director hurried over, leaning on his walking staff. What is it? Multiple objects entering our system, massive vessels, moving at. She paused, checking the readings again. This can't be right. They're traveling faster than anything we've ever recorded. Mev stared at the screen. Could it be the Krata? Have they come for us too? No, Lori shook her head. The energy signatures are different, and the Krata don't have this technology. These ships are something else. The news spread quickly through the Lumerian capital. The Elder Council gathered in emergency session as the strange fleet slowed down near the outer edge of their system. They're responding to our distress call, Counselor Ray announced. The humans have come. A large screen in the council chamber lit up, showing the human fleet. The Lumerians gasped. Each ship was enormous, built with sharp angles, and covered in what could only be weapons. They were dark against the stars, like predators hiding in shadow. By the great light, whispered Elder Trill. What have we done? The communication system chimed. A simple message appeared on their screens. Lumerian Council, we received your distress call. Help has arrived. Request permission to enter your space. Admiral James Morgan, United Earth Fleet. They're waiting for our permission, Ray said with surprise. That shows respect. Or caution, replied Trill. Let them approach. But only the lid ship. Minutes later, the human flagship moved closer to the Lumerian homeworld. A video connection was established, and for the first time, the Lumerians saw a human face. Admiral Morgan appeared on their screen. The Lumerians stared in silent shock. The human skin was tan and weathered, his body clearly dense with muscle. His eyes were focused and alert, like a hunter's. Greetings from Earth, Morgan said. We are prepared to assist your colony at Neris 7. Director Mev, who had been called to the council chamber, leaned toward Counselor Ray. Their biology is remarkable, he whispered. Look at the muscle density, the bone structure. They evolved in heavy gravity. And their immune system must be incredibly aggressive, added Lori. The radiation readings from their ship would kill us, but they seem unaffected. Counselor Ray stepped forward to respond to the human. Admiral Morgan, we are grateful for your response. But we must know, why would you help us? We have nothing to offer in return. Morgan's expression remained steady. You asked for help. Where I come from, that's enough. The council members looked at each other nervously. The humans were nothing like they had imagined. They had expected monsters, but instead found warriors with a code. A new human appeared on the screen beside Morgan. I am Diplomatic Officer Lisa Walker, she said. I understand this is first contact between our species. I propose we establish communication protocols while the fleet proceeds to your colony. Elder Trill leaned toward Ray. We've invited apex predators into our space, he whispered. Have we traded one danger for a greater one? Perhaps, Ray replied quietly. But look at their eyes. They came to fight for us, not against us. Sometimes you need a predator on your side. The Lumerians watched as the massive human fleet regrouped and prepared to move toward Neris 7. They had called for help into the darkness of space, and the response had come from the most feared world in the galaxy. Whether this was salvation or a new danger, only time would tell. Marine Commander Rick Davis walked slowly around the holographic display. The three-dimensional image showed the Lumerian colony on Neris 7, with red dots marking Krata positions. His face was serious as he studied every detail. The Krata have taken the outer farming areas, Davis said, pointing to the red zones. They're moving in a clear pattern toward the main settlement. Admiral Morgan nodded. How many civilians are still there? About 38,000, replied Tom Reed, checking his datapad. Mostly in underground shelters in the central area. The human tactical team had set up in a large room aboard the Defender. Several Lumerian representatives stood nearby, watching with a mix of hope and fear. Counselor Ray had joined the mission to Neris 7, acting as the main link between humans and Lumerians. We can drop our forces here, and here, Davis continued, marking 3 points on the map. Create a defensive line while we evacuate the civilians. What about the Krata biology? Asked Captain Rivera. Any weaknesses we can use? Reed pulled up an image of a Krata warrior. The insect-like creature had 6 limbs, a hard outer shell, and compound eyes. They're a hive species. They share thoughts. When many are together, they're smarter and more coordinated. So we separate them, Davis said simply. Break them into smaller groups. And their physical weaknesses? Morgan asked. They can't handle extreme temperature changes, Reed replied. Their shells crack, and they rely on vibration sensors to detect movement. Davis smiled slightly. Heat charges on the south approach, sonic disruptors on the east. That should confuse them enough for our main force to push through from the north. The Lumerians listened to this discussion with growing horror. The humans spoke of combat and killing with such calm voices, as if discussing the weather. You speak of war so easily, said Counselor Ray, her voice shaking slightly. Have you faced enemies like this before? The humans looked at each other. We've dealt with hive mind species, Admiral Morgan said carefully. Different biology, but similar tactics. Our world has millions of species, added Davis. Many tried to kill us before we climbed to the top of the food chain. We learned to survive. Ray stepped closer to the holographic display. And if you succeed, what do you want in return? Morgan seemed surprised by the question. We responded to a distress call. That's what we do. But surely you must want something. Ray pressed. Resources. Technology. Davis shook his head. Where we come from, protecting the innocent isn't a transaction. It's a duty. The Lumerians exchanged glances. These humans were strange creatures. They discussed war with casual expertise, yet spoke of protection and duty with genuine belief. "We will need your help," Morgan said to Ray. "Your people know the colony layout. We need guides for our rescue teams." Ray hesitated, then nodded. "We are not warriors, but we will help save our people." As the meeting continued, the Lumerians began to understand something important about humans. Their aggression and skill in combat came with something else, a deep sense of responsibility. They were predators, yes, but predators with a moral code. "The fleet will reach Neris 7 in 12 hours, Morgan announced. "All teams, prepare for combat drops. Our priority is civilian safety." The humans moved with purpose, checking weapons and equipment. The Lumerians watched, still unsure if they had made the right choice. They had called dangerous predators to fight on their behalf. Soon, they would see what Deathworlders could do in battle. The human fleet dropped out of FTL travel near Neris 7. The blue-green planet came into view on the main screen of the Defender, its surface marred by dark smoke from multiple locations. "Scan complete," reported Lieutenant Wilson. "Krata forces have taken the outer regions. They're closing in on the main settlement from 3 directions." Admiral Morgan stood tall at the command center. "All ships, move into defensive formation. Prepare dropships for launch." The massive human warships spread out around the planet. Smaller craft detached from their hulls, racing toward the surface. Commander Davis led the first wave of Marines, his dropship cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. "Team Alpha, secure the northern perimeter," Davis ordered through his helmet comm. "Team Bravo, move to extraction points and begin civilian evacuation." The dropships landed with precision. Human soldiers in powered armor jumped out, weapons ready. The Lumerian guides looked tiny beside them, pointing out paths through the colony. From a command post aboard the Defender, Counselor Ray watched the screens with worry. "Your soldiers, will they survive in our environment? The gravity is much lower than Earth's." Tom Reed smiled slightly. "Lower gravity is an advantage for us. Our troops can move faster, jump higher." "And the toxic gases near the volcanic region?" she asked. "Our armor has advanced filtration," Reed replied. "We can operate in environments far more dangerous than this." On the surface, Davis led his team toward the front line. The Krata had not yet noticed the human arrival. They moved in perfect formation, their hive mind coordinating every action. "Hold position," Davis whispered. His soldiers froze, weapons aimed. "On my mark. Now." Human weapons fired in unison. The front line of Krata warriors fell, their hard shells shattered by high-powered rounds. The remaining Krata turned, suddenly aware of the new threat. "They're adapting," warned Sergeant King, watching through her scope. "Changing formation." Davis nodded. "Deploy sonic disruptors." Small devices hit the ground near the Krata forces. They activated with a pulse that humans couldn't hear, but that sent the Krata into confusion. Their vibration sensors overwhelmed. They lost their perfect coordination. In orbit, Admiral Morgan watched the battle unfold across multiple screens. "Target the Krata ships in the northern hemisphere," he ordered. "Disabled only. We need to study their technology." The human warships moved with surprising speed for their size. Energy weapons lashed out, precisely hitting the engines of 3 Krata vessels. The alien ships drifted, powerless. In the main settlement, human soldiers helped Lumerian families board evacuation transports. The humans moved with care around the fragile aliens, their strength controlled. A Marine named Cooper lifted 3 Lumerian children with one arm, carrying them through a danger zone while firing his weapon with his free hand. The Lumerians watched in awe as the humans operated in toxic zones, high radiation areas, and extreme temperatures without slowing down. The Krata had never faced such an enemy. Their hive mind tried to adapt, but the humans changed tactics too quickly. When the Krata formed tight groups, the humans used explosive weapons. When they spread out, human snipers picked them off. "They're retreating from the western sector," reported Captain Rivera. Morgan nodded. They're learning. The hive mind is recognizing the threat. On the surface, Davis stood on a hill overlooking the battlefield. The Krata were pulling back, regrouping. It was the turning point. For the first time, the hive mind was experiencing something new. Fear. The battle for Neris 7 had begun, and the Deathworlders were winning. Tom Reed stood alone in the communications center of the Defender, surrounded by screens showing battle data. Something didn't make sense. The Krata attacks had been too precise, too targeted. Hive minds were smart, but this seemed different. "Computer, show me the communication patterns from the Krata ships," he said. The screen displayed a complex web of signals. Reed's eyes narrowed. Now overlay non-Krata signals in the system from the past week. A new pattern appeared, faint transmissions from the edge of the system. Reed zoomed in on the source. "Admiral Morgan," Reed called over the comm. "I need to see you immediately." 20 minutes later, Morgan stood looking at Reed's findings. Captain Rivera and Commander Davis joined them via secure link from the surface. "The Krata were manipulated," Reed explained, pointing to the signal pattern. "These transmissions came from a hidden ship at the edge of the system. They sense specific frequencies that agitate the Krata hive mind." "Someone wanted the Krata to attack the Lemurians?" Morgan asked, his expression darkening. "Yes, sir. And I've identified the source." Reed pulled up an image of a sleek, silver vessel. "It's Meridian technology. They've been watching this entire conflict." Morgan's jaw tightened. "The Meridians. I've heard intelligence reports about them. Highly advanced, secretive species. They've been studying us too," Reed continued. "These data packets contain detailed observations of Earth. They've been watching us for years, but they've never made contact. Because they're afraid of us," Rivera realized. "They see us as too dangerous to approach directly." Davis's voice came through the comm. "So they tried to get the Krata to do their dirty work. Wipe out the Lemurians, then the Krata would be weakened by the fight. And we were never supposed to get involved," Morgan concluded. "They didn't expect the Lemurians to contact us." Reed nodded. "The Meridian ship is still there, watching. They don't know we've detected them." Morgan stood straight, his decision made. "Captain Rivera, take the Relentless and 2 escort ships. Approach the Meridian vessel from behind the moon. I want them disabled, not destroyed." "Yes, Admiral." Morgan turned to the tactical display. "And get me Counselor Ray. The Lemurians need to know what we found." 2 hours later, the human ship surrounded the Meridian vessel. It tried to escape, engines flaring to life, but the humans had positioned themselves perfectly. Targeted shots disabled its engines and weapon systems. "Meridian vessel," Morgan broadcast. "This is Admiral James Morgan of the United Earth Fleet. You are caught in the act of inciting war between species. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." No response came. The silver ship hung silently in space. "They're deleting their databases," reported a sensor officer. "Massive data purge in progress." "Lock on tractor beams," Morgan ordered. "Bring them into the main hangar." On the surface of Neris 7, Counselor Ray sat with Commander Davis, looking at the evidence Reed had found. "The Meridians have always seemed peaceful," she said, her voice shaking. "Why would they do this?" "Fear," Davis replied simply. "They saw both your people and the Krata as potential threats, and they were terrified of humans most of all." Rad looked at the battle-worn human commander. "Perhaps they had reason to fear you." Davis smiled slightly. "Fear is only dangerous when it leads to bad decisions, like starting a war you can't control." Above them, the disabled Meridian ship was slowly pulled into the Defender's hangar bay. A new phase of this conflict was beginning, one that would reshape the politics of this entire sector of space. The Great Hall of the Lemurian Elder Council was filled to capacity. Lemurians from across their worlds had gathered to witness this historic moment. At the center stood Admiral Morgan, flanked by his officers. The Krata had retreated from Neris 7 2 days ago, their hive mind disrupted by human tactics. "Today marks a turning point," announced Elder Trill, his voice stronger than before. "Our colony has been saved. For this, we thank the humans of Earth." Applause filled the hall. Morgan nodded respectfully, his expression serious but pleased. "The Krata retreated after losing half their forces," Morgan said. "But they will return unless we establish a lasting peace." On a large screen behind them appeared the Meridian ship, now under guard in Earth's fleet. The silver vessel seemed small and harmless now. "The true enemy has been exposed," said Counselor Ray, stepping forward. "The Meridians manipulated the Krata to attack us. They hoped both our species would destroy each other." A murmur of shock went through the crowd. The peaceful Lumerians had never imagined such deception. "We have shared this evidence with other species in this sector," Morgan continued. "The Meridians' plot has been exposed to all." Intelligence Officer Reed stepped forward with a data tablet. "The Meridians have been playing different species against each other for decades. They saw humans as their greatest threat because we were too unpredictable." "And now?" asked one of the Lumerian scientists. "Now they face judgment from a united front," Morgan replied. "We have already received messages from 7 species who were also victims of Meridian manipulation." Captain Rivera entered the hall, bringing news from Earth Command. "It's official," he said to Morgan with a smile. "Earth has established a formal protection agreement with the Lumerian worlds." The announcement was met with cheers from the Lumerians. What had begun as a desperate call for help had turned into something much greater, the beginning of an alliance. Later that day, Admiral Morgan stood before the full council. Humans and Lumerians, side by side, former strangers now bound by shared experience. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day," Morgan said, his voice carrying through the hall. "Earth taught us to fight, but also to protect those who cannot fight for themselves. That is who we are." Elder Trill rose slowly from his seat. "When we sent our message into the darkness, we feared what might answer. We had heard stories of the Deathworlders. Violent, dangerous, unpredictable." He walked toward Morgan and extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship he had learned. "Now we understand. Sometimes the most dangerous species can be the most honorable allies." Morgan shook the elder's hand gently, mindful of the Lumerians' fragile bones. As news spread across the galaxy, other species watched with interest and concern. On distant worlds, leaders discussed what it meant that humans had entered galactic politics. Some feared the Deathworlders, others saw potential allies. In the Krata hive worlds, the queens gathered to discuss this new predator species that had defeated them. The Meridians faced isolation as their deceptions were revealed, and human ships began patrolling Lumerian space, a clear message to any who might threaten the peace. The SOS that had traveled through the darkness had changed everything. The Lumerians had called for help, not knowing that their distress signal would bring Earth's Deathworlders into galactic affairs. Whatever came next, the galaxy would never be the same.